name is Dawn Hudgens, and I'm here with Jim McKenna. Jim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Dawn. It's nice to be here.
Good. So we're going to talk a little bit about people who have inspired us. People have been trailblazers, the blaze that we personally are leaving behind ourselves, and inspiration that we can leave bits and pieces of along the road for others to kind of pick up. So, Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, where you're from, what you do, that kind of thing for those who don't know you.
Okay, my name is Jim McKenna. I am presently the Chief Information Officer for Fenwick West, LLP. I work out of our Mountain View office, which is in the lovely Bay Area of Northern California. I am a California native, born and raised here. Went to the University of Utah. Have worked in professional services for the last 23, 24 years. I've supervised all aspects of information technology, and I have the privilege and honor of being ILTA's president.
Excellent. All right, so I think most people that we would talk to would consider you to be very successful, personally and professionally. And so thinking about the road that kind of led you to where you are right now, who are these trailblazers or legacy livers, people who have lived this legacy of inspiration that have challenged you and inspired you?
It's an interesting question. I've had the privilege to meet a variety of people through my life, and to answer the question directly, some folks have taught me things that I should do, and some folks have taught me things that I should never do. And when you use the word legacy, I think it can be interpreted a couple of different ways. There's a positive legacy, and then there's a legacy that affects you and such. And I would like to think that all of my life experiences have helped me move forward in some regard. And sometimes it's just simply knowing, okay, that's a particular move, a word phrase, a tactic, a reaction that I just won't use. It was interesting to experience. I can understand why it was played in the moment, but that's not something that I want to have part of my repertoire going forward. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I've been around some folks that were amazingly inspirational. I can remember one time when I was in college, we were getting ready for one of our football games, and the coaches brought in a Marine by the name of Cleve McCleary. He was a Congressional Medal of Honor winner, and when he walked into the room, the one arm he had left was holding the crutch that allowed his one leg that he had left to allow him to walk. And he gave a speech, and it wasn't a speech in terms of, all right, guys, I want you to come out of the locker room and annihilate your opponents. It was more of, here was his story and what it was like to be in a position where it was up to him to protect everybody else. And he said, all you need to do to win tomorrow is agree with each other to not quit. And the second of which is for you to do your job. And that gives me the chills today. And when I heard that, whatever was on my mind evaporated. I immediately became focused, and I reference that every once in a while when I'm in a particular tough spot. Don't quit, do your job. I try to share that with people.
I like that. I like that. What do you think are key attributes that one has to kind of pull from deep down inside to be a trailblazer?
Boy, that's another good question. I don't know if there's a perfect answer for that, but I honestly think that if you're going to do well, what you do has to matter to you. You have to care about it, and you have to care about doing the best of your abilities. You have to be, you want to succeed. You don't necessarily have to aspire to be the single best person on earth. I mean, Lord knows there's 8.3 billion people in competition for, the title at #1 and such. But when you're working with a team or with a group of people, it has to matter to you that you want to deliver your best. And going back to my previous point, you want to do your job. You want to do your job well. And if you can draw upon that, and you can learn from your experiences, and you can ask yourself some questions such as, what did I just learn from whatever happened? Success, failure, in between. What did I just learn? And then the next time, apply that lesson forward. You can be amazed at the results that you can accomplish. I was watching a TV show one time, and I forget the name of it, but it was about this family of fishermen that work off of the East Coast, around New York. And they were renowned for producing or delivering the best fish for sushi in New York City. And there was other people that had bigger boats and fancier equipment and this and that. every single one of the fish that they caught was with a pole and a line. They didn't use nets. Every fish, this is going to sound odd, was treated with respect. I don't mean that from a philosophical standpoint, but they would take the fish out of the sea. It wasn't that they grabbed it and they threw it. And they knew that they couldn't compete on quantity. They knew that they couldn't compete on speed. But they knew that every single step that it took to get that fish to the restaurant, they could do just a little bit better than everybody else. So if you think about that, they were just doing 1% better than everybody else on a 100-step process. They were delivering a much superior fish, and they had enough business that they could say, I'm sorry, we're good. So when I work with people and I work with teams, it's one thing if we were to set the goal of, we want to run the 4-minute mile. It's another thing if you're the person who raises their hand and says, okay, I'm going to make sure you don't get a blister. Both are aligned with success in that vision, and it takes a team to do it.
That's great. Jim, I'm going to throw a curveball at you here. You mentioned earlier things that you've learned from people that you don't want to do. What are some of those things that you've picked up along the way that because of someone's example that you have chosen to adopt what they did in your life as something not to do in order to be successful?
Well, I did work that into the conversation. That's a good curveball, Don. So my background is incredibly confrontational. So I played competitive sports for a number of years, and I was lucky enough to be able to play it at the collegiate level. And on a daily basis, if you can think about it, here comes 100 alpha males who are to be the big fish in the pond, and they are rewarded for being aggressive, solving problems with physical dominance. Everything was a challenge to quote unquote, your manhood. Ego was, kind of the preeminent currency. Whatever you just did better than anybody else was the new bar to set. So I could go on with the examples and such, but it was very much that. And it was frequently an opportunity for people to tell you that you were weak, that you were stupid, that you were lazy, that you were slow, that you were this, that you were that. It was all these type of things. And it works in the short term. It works in the short term because that next play, all right, then I'm going to come back and, I'm going to try to be even bigger, badder, stronger, whatever word we want to use and such. But over the course of time, constantly being reinforced forward by being told what you did wrong, in my opinion, is not a way to have long-term motivation, commitment, and caring with people. So it was interesting to experience that. And for some folks, it works just absolutely fine. It does not work for me. So when I work with people, whether it's on a volunteer basis, whether it's on a professional basis, or even within my family and such, I'm all for constructive criticism, but I am a big proponent of here's the goal, here's the 1,001 steps that we got to go from here to there, and look at that, we just got that one right. And here's what you did right. Okay, now next time, it can be even better if we do a couple of things. Do you agree? And asking some questions like that, as compared to saying, none of this matters until the 1,000th step is taken, and then I'll give you a high five. So between those 2 points, there's a lot of different ways to manage people. And for the folks that really like the super duper confrontational, great, go find those people because they exist. If you are an individual who wants to be recognized, respected, and have your individual accomplishments celebrated on a regular basis, I give you my word, I'm going to try to do my best to do that as often as I possibly can, with the idea that we're all going to get better every single day.
Well, I can actually attest that you actually do that. That's been my experience working with you.
Thank you. I try.
You've been volunteering and working with ILTA for a long time.
20 years.
20 years? That is a long time.
Yeah, a little over 20.
Yeah. What have you gained from your involvement, and what would you have, what have you taken away and learned and implemented and placed in your life from having been part of ILTA?
Wow. That's a great question. I guess if I had to answer in a word, everything, and to, provide some specificity around that and such. There's a great phrase out there. I don't know who said it, but it really resonated with me is you never know how dumb you are until you get just a little bit smarter. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about ILTA is there was a never ending set of opportunities for me to try things. And while it would be great if everything worked perfectly the first time, I am not that individual. Sometimes I get it right on the second time. Sometimes it takes 3, 4 times. Sometimes it just takes practice and such. And ILTA as an institution gave me the opportunity to volunteer and work with people that were smarter than me, that were at different parts in their career, these are people, when I was a user services manager, these were people that were CIOs at massive firms or directors here and there, or, anything in between and such. And I had the opportunity to see how they solved problems, how they approached people, how they approached opportunities, how they would try to line solutions up so that you had a cumulative, massive positive payoff at the end, as compared to, we just fixed this one problem, great, and job's done. And some people made it seem so incredibly easy, but having the opportunity to work with these folks, you got to see, oh, this is the result of years worth of refined practice. And then every once in a while, they would say to me, okay, hey, tell you what, I saw you do this and that was really, really great, and that works in this context. But if you want to go to the next level, here's what you need to consider. And I'll give you a small example. One of my great role models and one of my mentors was a former CIO at a former firm that I worked with. Her name's Jo Harif, and I think the world of her. And one day when I was working for her, this is almost 20 years ago, she pulled me into her office and she said, hey, I just wanted to have a conversation with you. And I said, okay, great. And she said, I want to talk with you about how you're doing. And I was thinking, okay, that's fine. I didn't know where the conversation was going to go. And she said it like this, I'm paraphrasing the conversation. She said, in the short term, you're doing great. In the long term, you're hurting yourself. And I went, okay, you've piqued my curiosity. What do you mean by that? She says, you get every task done, you meet every deadline, and you achieve every goal that is put forth on every project. But you're not noticing all the casualties that you're leaving behind. And I went, really? And she says, yeah. She says, you'll get the job done, but like a bowling ball, you're knocking the pins over. And what I want you to start thinking about, because if you have aspiration in your career and you want to go to the next level, you have to find a way to get things done and make sure not only does everybody survive, but that they're successful. She says, what's interesting about you is that you're not getting the accomplishment, you're not doing the work per se for your own ego. It's not like you wave a flag and say, hey, look at what I did. You're committed to getting the job done, which is fantastic. But now you need to get the job done with the team and with the other departments and with the people that work in those other departments, and have them be successful on the path. And I can remember hearing that, and I completely agreed with what she was saying. I didn't understand a darn word of it. And I had to reflect upon that for a couple of years. And then it started to make sense. It really, really started to make sense. And over the course of time, I've been able to, I'd like to think, incorporate that into my work activities and my personal lives. And while the objective always matters, we are all going to cross the finish line. And the goal of all of us being successful is as important as meeting the deadline.
Wow.
So other people, it comes naturally to. It took work with me.
Well, I think that's that actually kind of hits home a little bit. Very wise words. Very wise words. So if you were to take all of that, everything we've talked about this afternoon, Jim, and you boiled it down to one phrase, one key phrase of advice that you could leave to someone else to share your legacy knowledge, your learnings, what would that one phrase be?
Okay, I got it. If the answer is yes, the question is how. So if we're in a situation where the answer has to be yes, or we have to deliver something in a particular way, or on a particular time frame, or with a particular constraint, or in a particular form factor, if that answer is yes, our job is to figure out the how. It's not our job to say that the yes is hard, that the yes is unfair, that the yes would be achievable if we had more resources, time, people, whatever word that we want to use. It's our job to figure out the how. And sometimes the how is hard, but sometimes the hardest part of the how is just figuring out what's the first thing that we got to get done, or what's the first thing that we need that we don't have, or what's the skill that isn't on this team that we have to obtain, or can we scale up internally quickly to get that particular skill. And if we're going to do that internally, and I'm kind of role playing here with you, I'm happy to invest in that individual, but I want that individual to care and raise their hand strongly and say that they're going to do it and then deliver upon it, and they'll be rewarded accordingly. So that would be my one phrase. If the answer is yes, then the question is how.
Jim McKenna, thank you very much for sharing your inspirations with us today. This is a lot to take back. And one of the things that I love about these Tea with Me's is that in every single one, we have at least 4 or 5 great nuggets that come out of it that people can take back and apply to their lives today on how to be better people, how to be better volunteers, and to be better at our job and in our homes as well. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Can I make a comment back to you, Dawn?
Sure.
Okay, so this is all true because you and I lived it. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to meet you for the first time. And prior to that, you had a very good job at a different employer, and you were knocking out of the park, and that was fine. And you took a leap of faith, and you came to Team ILTA. And I watched you get introduced to the deep end of the pool that was huge in scale, complex in nature, chaotic. And, you threw a curveball at me earlier. You had a whole bunch of curveballs thrown at you at that point in time. And I saw you do 2 things that were particularly important. The first of which is you did not quit. And the second of which is you stayed focused on the goal. And you were an inspiration to me. And I mean that.
Jim, thank you very much. That means a lot. Thank you.
This was fun.
Great. Well, next time we have one of these, I'm going to give you a call.
All right. Sounds good, Dawn. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. Bye-bye.